Yes, I need to be really clear about this one, because this is a mind-boggling thing for me. That this athleticism that is rising up in youth sports, that you start to train like a professional really early. So the downside of that is that, for example, in Kuopio or in southern Finland, we have a under 16 team that half of the guys in under 16 team, they have gone through some operation or are injured, or they have back problems, and they have their knees in really bad shape, and they have slapped their knees, and they have ankles that are not working properly. So I think our listeners would appreciate the small lecture about that. Is there anything that you can do that you for example, if you are under 8 player, your son is under 8 player, or your daughter, that what does it need to happen that player is healthy in under 16? Of course, you can always get injured in the game, but you how you do you get kids healthy to 16, 17, 18 year?
That's a pretty good topic, because nowadays we are watching how the injury statistics are growing in young ages, and we need to analyze them. We need to find the reason why, and if the reason why is because our training process is overstress them or overtraining them, that's bad, as well as we are trying to push them hardly that it should be recommended on those ages is also as well bad. So we don't need to be in a hurry. That's the first thing I need to say. So when you want to stress any capacity of the athletes at those early stages, you need to be sure about the adequate progression to do it, and as well as taking care of the recovery strategies and teach them about healthy lifestyle. I think this is a huge thing. It's called the invisible training. That is what the player does when it's not in the training process. If we can teach them and make them realize that this part of the training is important, I think also less injuries will appear. But we need to analyze very carefully the amount of time we are spending in the pitch. What are the activities we are proposing to the players to do? I'm not doing something that is harder. We should also take a look to the growing stage where they are at, because 16 years old kids could be totally different. So with some of them you can do more things, with some of them you can do less things.
Yeah, and what would you do if you suddenly become the coach of a Zenit under 10 or 12 year olds? What would your impact on that training would be like?
Well, for sure you remember, but one of the first times we met, you told me about the strategies you were doing with the athletes of that age, if I remember right, and you were speaking about how to teach them to move and do certain ability things with their body before training, and then we started to share some material about some pro teams proposing the same activities with their players. So when I'm speaking about 10, 12 years old, I'm not thinking about something else that is not teaching them how to move. And I don't say moving football wise. I mean like a human. Teach them many varieties of skills. Start with coordination skills, with everything that comes from the movement or your body, and there's also another part of the coordination that could be the specific coordination. That is the one you do with the tools you are using in your sport. In this case, is the football balls. Could be also the lines of the pitch. Could be many other things that could be teach in these stages, but nothing physical such as running or strength. The strength comes from games like pursuit games where they need to run away from others, or they need perhaps to collaborate and move a player from one side to another side. This is the kind of ways to stress these capacities.
Yes, the last episode we did was about these motor skills, learning about the motor skills in youth sports. And we were quite agreed on that one, that the more varieties you have, the more movement skills you teach, the more you can do good for your players. And you have to teach them really, you have to use lots of time on motor skills and coordination. How do you see that the structure of a practice session should be like if you are, for example, under 10-year-old? How much percentage, for example, to motor skills and coordination and games? And
I would say that is depending of the context. If I speak about, for example, the context you were having in KuPS, where you have little time inside the pitch, but you can also have time before out of the pitch, I will use it all the time out of the pitch with this kind of motor skills. That was the term I was missing. And the stuff it's happening inside the pitch, try to correlate it with football and motor skills, football related. But if you have the chance to be 1 hour and a half with the kids in the training ground, well, you just need to divide it properly, and I always like to give them this kind of free playing time during their daily practice, where they just play. They are 9 years old for sure. When you tell them why you want to go to the team practice, they will answer, because I want to play. So let them play too. But you can make really fun activities with these motor skills. You just need to stress your brain and not find the easiest way, find the way that the player will be doing it under fun conditions.
yes, I remember us junior coaches here in Kuopio, we were watching your trainings that you did with KuPS men, and we were saying that, wow, they are playing like tag with the adult players. So we were imitating your trainings and took them to the children because they were so childlike games. So they were having really fun. The KuPS players had really fun in those trainings, and when we took them to the kids, they also loved those games.
That's a thing. Sometimes we think, oh no, like they are professional. They are just here to win games. And think about it. You will see their faces every day, and they will do the same every day during the whole year. What they have, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of holidays during the year. We need to find a way to make, I won't say only funny, but challenging in that way activities for our players, because it will increase the level of commitment to train and also the team spirit. So warm-ups are a really great tool, and you don't need to do these warm-ups every day. There is certain times of the week where it's more recommendable, and also certain times of the year when you can do this more or less. But it brings a lot of things that a team needs also, and sometimes we don't understand this way.
Do you do those in Zenit also?
Yeah, actually, I won't say the first training, but for sure the first week. And you also need a progression, because when a player is not used to play this kind of child games, they feel like a child, so they don't like it. So you need to go step by step, and suddenly they will be dressed under a kid mask, and they will act for a while like kids, and they will enjoy and they will compete, and of course a huge difference is that when we make this kind of competitive and fun games with the players, the competitive aspect is huge. So sometimes we need to find rules that it decrease this level of competitiveness, because it could be even dangerous to do it as a warm-up, and they get really upset when they lose, or they get really upset when you commit a mistake as a referee or judge. So that also brings a lot of fun to the training process.
Yeah, we have an image of Russian people as really serious and really not childlike players. So that's I was wondering that how did it go with the Russians to get them play childlike games?
You know that sometimes I publish things about our trainings in social media, and I will publish very soon activities like what we are speaking about, and you will see they are having a lot of fun. I think they're not as serious as we think. They are just they express differently, but what I have found, maybe it's only in my team, that they are really funny people, and they like to joke, and it's good.
I would like to ask you one thing that might give a very practical tools for the coaches who might be listening now. If they have a team under 12 age, and let's say typically in Finland, let's say they have 3 training sessions during the week. Up to club, it's somewhere around 60 minutes to 90 minutes. How they should use their time when we talk about the motor skill and movement skills, coordination, and is it with or without the ball? If you think about typical training session, how to split the time with these things, how to integrate this into one training?
It might be all about stages and progressions. So perhaps we are really focused about a player being successful moving with the ball, but it might be so that that player cannot move properly without the ball. So it doesn't make any sense to start coaching with the ball before that player is able to move normally without it. So we should divide it, and the quantity of this time, it should be related with the level of your players. Once they have achieved proper levels of motor skills, I think you should start including more activities with the ball, and of course with the age they have. If they are younger, I think they would need more time, perhaps without the ball or with the ball, but with less requirement. So perhaps the ball is just there, but not as a football tool. Maybe it could be as another tool. You can be bouncing it. You can be moving it with another parts of your body. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. If we go now to your last season with KuPS, because that was season that I watched you guys really carefully. So could you talk us through about your season? You said that we were laughing with you that we have the shortest pre-season here in Finland, because it was was it 8 days or something, your pre-season in last winter, and then you started competitive games. So could you talk us through about the season?
I think it has been the most challenging season in my professional life, as well as the more beautiful season in my professional life, because it's full of ups and downs, and more downs in the beginning than ups. And we fought against all the odds, and we end up being the team we wanted to be when we all started this project. So I'm very glad to speak about it. And everything began with, well, in the same conditions as every year, but with the downside that year we were starting thinking that our environment would be different, because year before they told us that Kuopio Halli would be replaced with another surface. So we were thinking finally we will have a pre-season, but it ended up being not truth. So we were facing the same reality and the same problems as every year. And for teams in Finland who started their training in January, is a huge disadvantage to play in Suomen Cup, because the teams who has started on December are having 3.5 weeks of training more than you have at that stage of the year. So Suomen Cups normally start third week of January. I don't see that you can build the shape of your players in such a short time. And yes, Suomen Cup is an official competition, so you have limited substitutions. You cannot replace all the players, and you also want to perform. You want to win games. You don't want to be out of the competition in the first stage. So you put your best players sometimes, and that is breaking the training process or the time to stress them a little bit harder. But although I don't believe in these pre-seasons as the hard time of the year and then you just have full to the rest of the season, but if you don't have good conditions and if you are playing an official competition as we were having, is such a challenging environment to train.
Yeah, I remember we were in the gym with the where you go with the KuPSin players, and you had a shitty Suomen Cup last year, and in the bad start of the season that and you were telling that you are working really hard. Then it was around April or something, and we were just nodding that things will get better after like summer, and it did. So could you continue with the story, like after the Suomen Cup and the first few games of the season that was really struggling with you guys, and how did it all came up at like August or September, and then how was it like then?
I think once all the bad things that happened to us in the Suomen Cup were done, that was a critical moment, because of course you don't expect to be out of the competition that soon, and we were having games where perhaps the football, it was not that bad, but some mistakes that we weren't used to face were happening, and looks like as much as we tried to find the solutions to those, as much as we were far from those. So it was pretty frustrating. But we were so motivated for the kickoff of the league, because that was our chance to renovate our face and demonstrate we are ready for the challenge. And you know, Kuopio is not that big place and is a football city, so everybody was really motivated about us and the chance to win the league. But facing that bad moment, suddenly the motivation of the people or the confidence of the people dropped as well. So we were trying to demonstrate them since the first game of the league. This is gone. We have been training hard in the training camp, and we come with the renovate illusion. So let's have that chance. And well, the beginning of the league was something else, because we draw in the last minute against Robs at home, receiving a goal in a free kick. And I think that game we played good football and the team compete pretty well, counting that we were coming from a bad moment. And then if I remember right, our second game was in Lahti. That has been the second most crazy game I have played with KuPS, where we were winning 3-0 in the halftime, and we were having a great game. And suddenly in the second half, all became doubts, and we ended up drawing 3-3. And that broke us apart. Like, I remember the trip back home, nobody were crossing a word with anybody. Our faces were so serious, and we were so upset, I think. But I don't know if I was that week or week after. I put a picture in the coach's room about succeed. And normally you think succeed will come in a progressive line down to up, and the reality is that there is many curves on the way to the good results. So to make us believe that this is just the toughest period of the season, but we will get better and survive. And I think coach as Honsu is the best coach ever to deal with this situation, because he always bring calm to the players. He always keep our focus in the things we need to be focused, and is not kind of a coach that will create problems out of this situation. So that was maybe one of the reasons why we were able to also get out of there.
Yeah, and could you share something about the injury prevention of the last season? Because you did a so good job in that one. So our players were quite healthy, even at the late stages of the competition in October.
Actually, that season, if we share our data, it was the season where we got more injuries, and we got some weird injuries that we never had before, such as hamstring injuries with players like Lucas or Isatiwa, that we really couldn't find the reason why, and we put all our effort in rehab them and, well, make them stronger in a way. And that was kind of hard to deal, because you know that if you want to succeed, you need to have the maximum amount of players available during the season. And perhaps that was the reason why we were successful in the 2 seasons before. But we knew we were doing the things right, and we didn't change anything compared with the last season. We trust in our way and in our method. And what happened every single season since we were in KuPS is that we have been the best team in the last stage of the season. And I think that's the reason why we are good, is because we manage carefully the loads of the players during the beginning. We don't stress them so much, so we are able to perform our best when the real moment comes. And that happened again. We were so strong in the playoff stage, and we were almost unbeatable, and the players were performing greatly. And at that period of the year, you have a lot of games, and recovery strategies are very important. So I think that was one of the strong facts of our team.
Yeah, could you share something specific? Did you do something recovery strategies or this injury prevention in gym? What was that thing that I think the public would be good to know? Your some secrets if you have on your sleeve.
Well, when it comes to injury prevention, you need to find two parts of this complex thing. One of it is the one related with the athlete. So you need to understand what has happened before with that athlete, how many injuries did he has, why, how they appear. Once you know all this information, you need to build a strong program so you can reduce the risk for that injury to happen again. And perhaps you need to develop routines that player will do before the training, routines that the player will do during the week to make stronger certain part of their body areas, or well, there is 1,000 different things you should do depending the injury. And also you need to take care of what they do, as I told you before, out of the pitch in their invisible training, and teach them how to improve that way. And then there is the second part, that is how you structure your trainings during the season and during the week, depending the games you have. So there is a lot of theory about it, but the reality in football is that context is changing from one week to another in professional level. So you should be clever enough to be always adjusting to it. And you cannot repeat things during the season because it doesn't make sense. You just need to adjust and find the best thing to do in certain moments. And I don't know if that was the key, but we might be one of the teams in Veikkausliiga who were the less in the training ground, if you count the training time. And we were focused always in quality before than quantity, and that allowed us to be in a good shape longer than perhaps other teams. And also we didn't like to make longer trainings. I think the longest training we made is 90 minutes, and this is things that has changed during our process in KuPS. At the first years we were having maybe very long trainings, and we found out that we should maybe reduce it and be targeting more our goals. So it's very complex, and the solutions are found in everyday decisions, not in one key factor, I think.
And is it the same in St. Petersburg now, in Zenit, where you're working? So is the basic structure, physical conditioning on a team is the same, or are there any differences there, because you now have a lot more staff in Zenit?
I think it's pretty much the same. Of course, I cannot speak what is how is the team acting in a normal competitive period, because we haven't played any official game yet. As you know, in Russia the league is stopped during winter time, and it starts the second part around March, middle of March. So we haven't played any official game, but in the pre-season that is so long in this country, you have 3 months pre-season in between the season. That is something so new for me that I also needed to adjust for it. So we were achieving, I would say, high loads of training, and there is when the difference between countries comes to the reality. Russian athletes are able to train so much, and their recovery after hard trainings comes so fast because they are used to work under those conditions since they are young. So we were training a lot and hard, but the players were reacting well.
Do you have any insight or view of Finnish style of training in that sense? I have heard a lot of stories that we have quite a big injury rate in our teams in elite level in youth football, let's say under 13 up to under 18. I've heard that there are teams that 8 of the players at the same time have same type of either muscular injury or joints. Do you have any insight why?
I think a study will be published soon. I think in summertime, that they made to all the Veikkausliiga teams last season regarding the injury rates of every team and all the leagues. So we will know about more detailed facts about injury rates in Veikkausliiga due to that study. I'm also very curious about it. I only know the data of my team as well as some other teams, but not in detail because, of course, you always speak with other fitness coaches and coaches. So I don't have a clear answer for that. But if you are telling me that 8 players get the same injury in almost the same time, you really kind of point to something you are making in the training process. There is not such a bad luck that 8 similar injuries will come at the same time. And when it comes to joint injuries or muscle injuries, there is 1,000 reasons what they can appear. But if you have 8 at the same time, you for sure find the reason why. And I only have questions what they are doing, how much they are doing, when they are doing. Those would be the questions you should ask to find the reasons why.
Yeah, I've been in my own mind thinking about this, that is that kind of situation possible that it will raise the probability to get injured if your motor skills are poor during the childhood and junior football and youth phase, and then you approach the puberty and the teenage. And if you squeeze the bottom so that you start training more, you start training more harder, but your body is not ready for that, if the motor skills and everything is not prepared for that, is there a link between those things?
Well, just think about what would happen if you do incorrectly any activity and you repeat this activity through the time player is developing, let's say 4 years, 3 times a week during almost the whole year. That will create huge imbalance on the body, and that will stress one area more than other area. So that's why it's really important to teach players how to move correctly, and that's the first aim. But you also have some other risk that although player is moving correctly, they can be imbalances that your body produce, and you need to identify those in order to protect the structures and be more able to succeed having this disbalance, because I think there is not such a perfect body that works at 100% of their potential. There should be always little corrections, and perhaps when you are working with youth athletes, the athletes, they don't have the resources to identify these problems. So suddenly when the pain comes, is maybe too late, or the problem is bigger than that should have been if you have discovered earlier.
So I have one theory about this one. I was talking to one foot therapist, which was asking good question to all football coaches that, for example, if there's a child that is in his teens or early teens and he gets a slaughter knee, so knees really hurts. So the medicine that we use right now is that we just say that, okay, now you have to rest. But and he was criticizing that because the rest doesn't make all the bad habits of the player to go away. For example, he rests for 1 month or 2 months, and then he starts training the way he was training before, and then it will appear again, this pain in the knee. So he was suggesting that it all of the pain and all of the things start in your foot. So you have to take care of like your lower foot and ankles, and then you start building up the knees and hips, and the mobility of those are so important. How do you comment on this one?
Well, resting will heal with every pain, but it will not resolve that pain. So as you said, it will appear again as soon as that athlete will come to to activity. And I do believe that food has a tremendous importance, and it could be the reason why you are having pains in the lower back, in the knees, in the hips, but it's not always that easy as find what is happening in the feet. But there is always, we should be responsible and prepare enough to understand that what is hurting normally is not the cause of the pain. You know, I don't know if I make myself clear on that, but perhaps it can be hurting your knee, and the problem it can be in how tight is your muscle in the thigh, or how you move doing certain activities, and the pain is being reflected in the knee. So we need to understand the pain globally and identify all the risk factors around it, that we just, it's so stupid sometimes to look the painful area and forget about the rest that is around it. And as you said, food is very important, and it's more important perhaps in sports where they are more continuous, like for example running or more repetitive actions. So that will create such a huge stress in the same areas because there is no variance in the movement. But in football, there is that is the complexity about it. Is multifactorial. So you need to have really good professionals around it to identify those. And I think luckily in KuPS we were surrounded by super good doctor and super good physiotherapists that always help us on that.
Yes, and how do you see this enormous data that is storming the football world, that people are gathering more and more information about the player in the training and the player in the game? How do you see that like changing your work, and how can you describe how much data, for example, you use in Zenit? Is it more than in KuPS or what, or in the same level?
Well, I think it's almost the same, I would say, but we have more professionals who can deliver the really important facts of the data you are collecting. That should be the aim, because nowadays football industry is selling you that data is super important and is the answer for everything, and data helps a lot, but it's not the reason why you will win a game. Perhaps it's not that easy as that. You always need to cross data with many other factors. So in KuPS we were managing as much data as our resources allowed us, and that's funny because sometimes the player asks you why you need to record that many things and how is changing the process. They do believe that once you are recording things, all the rest will change, but not. It's not that easy. We just need to find trends and understand globally all the process. And nowadays, I think data with every professional club is working is with these GPS monitors that will tell you everything about the activity that a player produces inside the pitch. I mean, everything. The challenging is to choose that data. It could affect the process. And we are also working with a lot of subjective data about how the player feels, and we need to study very carefully those in order to identify tiredness in the player, how ready is he for the training, for the game. Should we take any decision based on that?
Yes, and I think this would be a good time for you to, can you sum up for like the most important key factors about physical conditioning and injury prevention youth sports? Because I think most of our listeners are working with the youth. So can you, because you're a professional, sum up these 3 or 4 principles for all the coaches who are really eager to hear that?
All that comes through the progression, and progression should be present in everything you do. So always starting from the less specific stuff to the most specific stuff, and going through the less amount of time working to more amount of time working, and going through less separated from the football realities for more close. And it's hard to define it in 3 topics that will give you the answers for all of that, but it just work on the fundamentals at the beginning, and don't be never in a hurry to overstress things on youth players that are not key for anything. Well, I can speak through the professional and transmit this also to the youth. At the end, play with the limits is very dangerous, and when you are playing with the limits, you are playing under huge risks. So you need to find balance on that. And for me, in this sport, is very important to make your players available through the longest time you can make that. And normally the way to get that is not overstressing them, and don't move over the limit, the top limit. And of course, if you are moving very close from the game demandings, there is also risk to get injured. So you just need to move in the middle of those as long as possible.
Yeah, I was just smiling here because this is the plague of our area of coaching, that we have to oversimplify things, and we ask professionals that you have to tell me 3 things I need to do, because there's so much information, and so you have to really dig deep in physical conditioning to really get the hang of it. So there are people always watching these YouTube videos that do things to do these 5 moves and then you become a professional, or do these 5 things you become healthy, or things like that.
But Toni, let me put you, it just came to my mind now, an example about how sometimes we understand the training. I think if you choose one capacity out of our sport, for sure all the coaches will tell you that, yeah, I like fast players, so I would work on speed, because speed is key factor on this sport. So I'm gonna make our players faster, and most likely they will try to make them faster through linear runs and how fast you arrive from point A to point B in the same direction, and actually they will be super fast. They will make test of 30 meters and they will be the fastest in the whole town perhaps. But do we really think that speed we are measuring is gonna be shown in the game? I think the correlation between how much you stress a skill and how much that player show in the pitch is not positive, because you can have perhaps a player that jumps higher than the other players in your squad, but is unable to get the right timing or get the right position or fight against an opponent. So we don't need to be crazy about make our players the fittest, because the most important is that they are able to use all the things they have inside them inside the football context. And there is not such an important skill that will be destroying opponents or giving you the wins.
Yeah, this is a really good stuff, because I think the coaches that I know struggle with these things, because We watch lots of YouTube videos, and from those we try to make up what's the sensible thing to do with the kids to make them as good players as you can.
There is, sorry for interrupting you,
yeah.
one silly question. Do you think Andres Iniesta is a fast player?
No, he wasn't really so fast in his foot.
In his foot, that's the right thing. But for me, he's one of the fastest players in the world. And the reason why is because he's able to find solutions earlier than the rest of their teammates. So he can see the game before their teammates and before the opponents are watching the things. And he's also fast because he's arriving in the right time. This is about timing. It's not about be so fast. Sometimes it could mean being so early and doesn't make sense. So you just need to be in the right timing. Something is the velocity and something is how fast you are. And in football, fast could be also measured through a cognitive understanding.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have that very practical live test about it. Usain Bolt tried that, and it's not just enough.
Totally agree. We also have seen Usain Bolt playing football, and he's unable to express that speed in this game. Only when he has maybe 2 chances during the game when the opponent is defending high, so he has space behind the line, someone can get the ball there, so he will arrive first than the opponent. But in the rest of the moments, doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is I think we are in the key point of a Finnish coaching system now, because we are just developing system here. We don't have such a strong culture of how to teach football, how to teach game intelligence, and how to teach. So we are just like, there are so many coaches that are watching YouTube videos, and so many coaches that are listening to podcasts and picking one piece of coaching there and one piece of the other places, and then trying to combine those in his head, and then goes to the training. And I saw Barcelona training like this. So guys, let's do this. So we will become good players in passing. And this is really clear if you watch like football clubs in Finland, that there are not so many clubs that have really clear coaching lines, that what should be taught with kids in what age.
I totally agree. And perhaps you also can think what happened with all those players who are expressing so much speed when they are young. They are the most chosen players in the squad. For sure they will play in the wing, and they will be the most determinant players. So when that player is it's so skillful in those ages, you are forgetting about all those things you were mentioned that are coming part of football stuff. And you don't need to coach them because he's giving you good results in this early stage. So when they become pros and they need to find those solutions, they are unable. They are not that fast anymore because they are not. The difference are lower when you become a pro, and they don't have any more tools in the pocket. So they will be out very soon.
Yeah, I think you are so right. I have like two questions for this to close up our conversations. That where do you see Luis Anula in 5 years' time?
Well, I would like to be, and this is really competitive world, but I would like to see myself working in football and in professional football. And I don't know, I think one of the best memories I have as a coach is those ones who comes from stadiums with audience, with moments where you were playing for something important. So I would like to be in that position, that I'm playing for big audience and for important moments, because they are so powerful and keeps you motivated from every day to get back to those moments.
Yeah. And do you have anything you didn't say and you would like to say to people, coaches who are listening this all over Finland?
Well, I think we have went through many stuff, so I just hope they find interesting some of the things we are telling. And one thing I would like to say is that I'm not trying to sell the truth in anything I'm telling. It's just my opinion, and this sport allows many different opinions and many different ways to do the things. There is not a book to tell you how to do the things, and that things are the only way. So I just encourage people to judge as much as they want, and get the things they agree with, and also get the things that they don't agree, so they can do in different way.
And is there any way people who are interested, they can follow you somewhere? And how can you be reachable, or how can you be reached if somebody has some questions they want to ask you?
Well, you know me that I'm pretty open person and I like to speak with everyone. So I'm very actively in Twitter and also in Facebook, sharing some stuff I'm doing at my job, and through it they can contact me for sure.
Yeah. And for me, I think this was really enlightening to talk with you again, as always, because you come from so different culture than we do. So it's really mind-opening to hear about your professional thoughts about approaching football. And is there anything, Petteri, would like to close up our conversation?
Only one thing. Thank you very much, Luis. This was super good.
I really appreciate you.
And also Toni, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Luis. Yeah, sorry.
I just gonna thank you guys that it's great, as I told you at the beginning, to allow anyone to break their routines and speak about the most enjoyable topic, that is football, in all their ways. And well, Toni knows that I have such a big love for Kuopio people and KuPS, and also about Finland, that sometimes somehow I will be in touch with all of that through all my life. So pretty glad to be here, and more glad if you have enjoyed.
Yeah, thank you. We have, and I hope the listeners can find something and some tools for their coaching or for their kids. So thank you, everybody.